All right, JoeyRitter.com, on Twitter at Joey Ritter. I've got New York City's hottest and most exciting comedian. That's a fact. That's not an opinion. His name is Mark Norman. Mark, thank you so much for doing the show. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, sir. Thanks for having me. Good to be here. Queef.
You're brave in the New York City streets during a tough time, so I appreciate you gambling with your life there. So a lot to talk to between your comedy and Tuesdays with Stories, but this week you posted an Instagram. I would say it was your teenage years. You were skateboarding in your backyard. So what are we talking, late 90s, early 2000s time frame?
No, yeah, that was probably 2000 and probably 99, maybe 99. Yeah,
Great
me
year.
and my friends. Good year. That's a tire. We built a mini ramp about 4 feet in my backyard in a horrible neighborhood, and a bunch of street toughs eventually ruined it with BMX bikes. But we stole all the wood and built the whole thing. This is pre-internet, folks. We had to learn how to do this, and we bent the wood and we drilled it, and we nailed it, we put coping in. It's a nice little summer project, and yeah, then I would get shirtless and really rip it up.
So back then, talk to me about high school Mark. What were your passions? What did you spend your time doing? I don't know if comedy was in the cards yet, but tell me about high school Mark.
He was, a douche, just coming off a good bedwetting streak. I was nervous. I wanted to be hip. I wanted to be accepted, not getting laid. I had braces. I had a horrific jerry curl. I had horrible pit sweat. I remember I went to Catholic school, and I'm a public school kid my whole life. Then my parents were like, you're falling behind. You're hanging out with the kids from the wrong side of the anal or whatever that is. And so they wanted me to go to a private school, which is just another type of crooks and criminal. They're just in a uniform or religious. Now it was all about drugs in Catholic school. But yeah, I wasn't really popular, but I was cool with everybody. I wasn't like one of the cool kids. I wasn't homecoming king, but I did win senior superlative as funniest.
Oh,
so that kept me from killing myself. But yeah, I lunch table zinger guy, skateboard enthusiast. I was obsessed with comedy, obsessed with being funny. That was all I had. And I was a car dweeb. I bought a 1971 Cutlass convertible when I was a junior, and that was a big one for me. That kind of pushed me up a few pegs. But yeah, just a goofy dweeb mostly.
Did you listen to kind of the late 90s skateboard punk rock type music back then?
Oh, sure. Oh, I liked all that. I loved ska. I was into NoFX. I liked Voodoo Glow Skulls and Real Big Fish and you name it, all that shit.
Wow, you're speaking my language there.
Oh, sorry. I was also heavy into some NOLA rap. We had the Cash Money was bumping back in my day, and it was a local thing, so we got really into it.
So you grew up in New Orleans. Now, I'm not familiar with the typical New Orleans accent, but I imagine it's not what comes out of your mouth. What's like typical words that would be associated with New Orleans?
It's kind of like a Cajun twang. My friend Sean Patton put it perfectly. He said it sounds like if a guy from Brooklyn took a Valium. It's like a little slowed down. It's like, how your mom and them? You going out for groceries? Where you at? Where you at tonight? A lot of that shit. A lot of contractions. That's even the name of our magazine. Where you at? What's that? Sorry.
Do you fall into that when you get back there?
Not at all. I never had it. I never wanted it. It doesn't mesh with my face and disposition. So even if I caught it as a kid, I tamped it down and I got rid of it early.
Gotcha.
I didn't want it. It didn't fit me. I can't walk around going, crawfish. I had to get rid of it early, much like chicken pox or corona.
Exactly. So let's back to comedy. Now you've performed Philly many times. You've mentioned that Philly Helium is one of your favorite spots, and that's no surprise because it's such a great venue. But, you have some upcoming shows that might be rescheduled, but we'll see. But it's obvious, those shows probably would have sold out, right? You're doing well in Philly. You've got a great name there. What's it like, are the decisions made when you graduate from Helium to, say, the Tower Theater or one of the other theaters in Philly? Like, how does that happen?
Oh boy, well, I think it's for me. I'm no viral queef. I've built this brick wall one brick at a time, and it's taken a while. But Philly's always been good to me. I love Philly. It's probably one of my favorite clubs. It's one of my favorite cities to perform in. It's gritty but still smart. They get it, and they're not offended. I just love that group over there. And every year I do the club. I've done it probably 4 years in a row, 5 years in a row. I've gotten more sellouts, and I think this year was almost already sold out even before I went, which is rare for me. And I think the year after that, if this world wasn't on pause and we weren't getting jizzed on by a Chinese bat or whatever, I think I'd be moving to theaters.
Yeah, but it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time. I feel like you stepped into the rocket ship, took off, and then it was like, all right, back down, buddy. You got to wait a little longer, but it's gonna.
I know. God, this thing really kicked me in the taint at the wrong time. I was finally selling tickets and things were cooking, and I just really, I put my dick in a fan. But yeah, I don't know. I'll be back, and hopefully the world will come back to normal one day.
Right.
But I can't wait to do Philly. I love it.
Awesome. Now stay with me on this analogy because I'll probably, I don't know if I'll get it out correctly here, but.
All right, I love it now. Anal.
Think of like a band or a musician that puts out a couple albums and their music kind of sounds the same through the first couple albums, and then maybe they bring in the keyboards or eclectic backup vocals or something, or even the other way where maybe they start to write pop songs specifically for the radio. Is there any equivalence to those kinds of things in stand-up comedy?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's all very similar. I mean, I lost track of the first two. You gave a couple examples there. Give me a few again, and I'll sorry, a girl walked by with yoga pants, and it threw me.
Maybe like a comedian that writes jokes just to appeal to more people, or
yes,
yeah.
Well, we call them hacks. Sorry. What were you gonna say?
It's more like the evolution of your comedy. Like, do you think about what your comedy is going to be like in 5 years, or do you're kind of set in your ways and you just do it and you just perform and however it comes out is how it comes out?
Well, yeah, I think there's definitely guys or gals who pop early and because they're very broad, it'll be like some Middle Eastern guy and he goes up there and goes, "Don't worry, I'm not a terrorist. Oh, hello, and you're like, no one thought you were a terrorist. We bought tickets to the show. We knew we were seeing you. You're on stage. Shut up." But it's so broad and easy to get that people buy into it. And he has like a flash in the pan moment of like, all right, the industry, they're so stupid that they're like, yeah, this guy's killing. He's brown. He's an Indian guy. He's saying he's a terrorist. This is gold. People love it. But that shit can only last so long, And I had a real rough start, in the beginning. I was trying to be so different that it wasn't even computing with people. Like, I was trying to talk about anxiety and being an introvert and therapy, and everybody's like, "What?" And I had to just hit the brakes and just do the fundamentals. I had to learn everything from the ground up, and nothing worked right away, and it was so frustrating as a new comic, but I'm glad I went through it now. But I had to just learn everything. Like, all right, learn to dribble, learn to pass. Right. Learn, run from the half court line to the end of it, to the goal, back and forth. Like, I had to do all that shit joke-wise. So if you look at my early stuff, it's not hacky, but it's incredibly broad and incredibly gettable by everybody. And I had to learn that all the way. And then once I learned those rules and those guidelines, then I could put in my own weirdness and still make it work. But it was a rough go in the beginning, I'll tell you that.
Well, the thing that I like about your comedy so much, and I can't even believe I have to say this, is that like you write jokes, you appreciate punchlines, and
right.
There's no shortage of comedy out there, and exactly what you were saying before about specific people doing those things that are just kind of the flavor of the day, but you keep the fundamentals of the joke and what comedy should be about, and I feel like that's why you're just going to plow through and blow by everybody.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, and I slave over these yucks, but I got to tell you, it's weird. Like, people always go, "You're a joke guy." I'm like, I thought that's what we were doing here. A, and B, how do you get laughs? What are you slipping on a banana peel? Are you juggling? Are you pulling your dick out? Like, how are you getting laughs without telling jokes? I never got that. So I just tell jokes because I need laughs. And then it's very simple. And then when they laugh, they stop laughing. And then you got to get them to laugh again because you got 58 more minutes to fill. So you got to write another joke. And it's a long process, but I don't know how else to do it, honestly.
Well, you're doing it right. So
I appreciate it. Thanks. Sorry if I sound cunty.
No, you sound crystal clear. So I want to talk about the movie Back to the Future because I feel like you've made some references to that on your podcast. So you've seen the movie, you know, the main characters, Marty, Doc, Biff, George, Lorraine. Which of those characters do you think could carry their own movie?
Ooh, it's an interesting question. I think if he had fucked his mom, I think that'd be a fun angle to go down. You know, let's make that movie. Him hooking up with the mom, then they have kids, and how do those kids turn out? You know, like that's not just incest, but it's like time bending incest, which is a whole new genre that I haven't explored masturbation wise. But yeah, that would be my answer for that. Is let's talk to that kid who got fucked by his son. Wait, his dad fucked his mom from another dimension or whatever the hell it is. So yeah, that's what I would want to see. That family.
Right. Not what I thought you were going to say, but I'm with you there. All right. Now, speaking of time travel, if they gave you the keys to the DeLorean and you had maybe just 2 rounds of plutonium where you could just go one direction and back, you could only go to either the past or the future. Which one would you pick?
I hate to say it there, Chachi, but I think I would. Part of me wants to just zoom through this Corona dick cheese and get that over with and go right to May 2021. But then, you know, you miss all the, what if Trump gets assassinated? What if Betty White dies? What if Oprah comes out as gay? You know, I don't want to miss all that. So I guess I would go on the past. That's tough, and I can come back, right?
You can go back. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Then I would go in the future and see what the hell is going to happen in like 50 years. Where are we going to be at? But then the past is so intriguing. You could see like the 20s or something. You go to Paris in the 20s, or you could just go to you could do like an almanac, like Biff, and you can just make some big bets in 1981. Right. And then you could be a huge comic too, because I'd have my whole act and I'd be groundbreaking, you know, because I could tell me as like a 5-year-old these jokes that I wrote. And then he could go do them, and he'd be huge. He'd be a millionaire. That's
interesting. How do you think you would do in like 80s, you know, Paula Poundstone type days?
I think I'd do okay because it was so easy. I don't say it was easy then because they didn't know what we know now, but I feel like a lot less things were covered. And, you know, it's almost like you want to go back to skateboarding. Tony Hawk does the 700. And now everybody can do a 700, you know? And I think it's the same with comedy. Like, I know all these tricks now about comedy that they didn't know, and I can just go back to that time and do them, you know? The 4-minute mile. One guy did it. Now everybody can do it.
Right. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. One more general movie plot question, and it doesn't hold as much weight because we're currently living it. But in the movie, if you lived in the movie Groundhog Day, even though we're kind of living in it right now, but if you could pick a day where, you know, a day in your life that you've already lived where it was maybe a positive experience, which day would you pick?
Oh, man, that's good. That's a good question. Boy. Let's see. Well, when I was, I don't know, probably 5-6 years ago, I went to Hawaii, went to Maui for the Maui Comedy Fest. And I just had the greatest day. Like, woke up, hit the beach. I what do you call that? Skeetboarding? What's that thing with the little board on the wave? Shimmy board or Jimmy? What is that thing? Skeetboard? I don't know. You know, you run and you throw it down, you jump on it.
This is a skimmer?
Maybe skimboarding. That could be something. Skim milk. I don't know. Either way, we did that all day for hours. Then we got drunk at lunch, had a big lunch. meet a bunch of comics. And then we drove around the island and like found these caves, and we had a buzz going. You smoke some weed, and you jump into this pool of water, these natural, what do you call those things? They're like hot springs. And then we did shows that night. The shows were killer. And then I ended up hooking up with a girl at a bar. We went back to my hotel and we banged in the pool. And I remember the pool was closed, so the guy cleaning the pool with the big net, the long net, he kept nudging us because he was like, "Hey, it's closed. You got to get out." But he was Hawaiian, so he was like a local. So he was like, "What?" We're like, "Oh, sorry." And then we ended up going back to my room and banging all night. So it was just like this perfect, beautiful day. And I've had a lot of great days, and I can't pull them all up. But that one's on the top of my asshole.
Yeah, that's a hell of a day right there. So thank you for that. Now, let's talk about the New York City scene, because personally, I've never been to a comedy show in New York City. Now, you perform nonstop, right? Hopping from club to club, doing spots, working on new material. I'm interested to know, like, how often, I guess a Chris Rock or a Gaffigan or a Seinfeld come through and do that guest spot to practice their material.
Pretty often, actually, because there's so much going on. Oh, there was, jeez. Gah! The whole thing kills me. I miss it so much. But, yeah, a lot of Gaffigan. Gaffigan the most. He's always jumping around. That guy's – and he's got a binder. Literally, he pulls out a big binder with, like, this will be my quesadilla chunk, and then this will be my shoelace chunk, And you could tell he really worked on those all day, and then this is his time to try it out. And Seinfeld, you see at Gotham, and you always see these guys when they're working on something, they're doing SNL, so Mulaney will pop in everywhere because he's got to run his SNL set. Or Ray Romano is doing his Netflix special, so he would pop in all the time. So it's always kind of based on what they're doing, but they're always popping. It happens quite often, and they each have their own favorite club they go to, and it's fun to watch. And they're all just such killers. Like, you watch a comic and you're like, oh, this guy's pretty good. And then you see these guys go up and you're like, oh, that's why they're famous. That's why they're huge. That's why they're so legendary. It's because it just clicks. Something just shifts. And it's a thrill to watch. Like, any comic who's in their hometown who's got access to a comedy club and you see one of these greats come by, go see it. Go watch. Even if you got to pay. I used to pay to see Norm Macdonald when he would go to Caroline's when I was broke in New York. And it helps. You learn a lot, and it's it's a gift. These guys are all going to die one day of suicide or drug overdose, so take it in while you can.
Yeah, I saw Norm at the Philly Helium. It was amazing.
Really?
So which club, I guess, if you had, so I don't know, let's say I'm in town for work in New York a Wednesday night. Where should I go for the best chance of that happening?
Wednesday night. Do you want to see a drop in, or you want to see just a hot show of younger people?
Let's answer both.
I'd say you want to see a hot drop in, probably the Cellar. You'll get your like Aziz maybe, or like Jeff Ross will come by, or somebody like that, Mulaney. But if you want like the younger hot guy, like an Andrew Schultz, kind of Chris D, kind of Ron Bennington, Tim Dillon-y kind of night, I would go to the Stand to see those guys work out. And then the other clubs are great too. Gotham is where you'd see Seinfeld, maybe, and Gaffigan, maybe. So it depends on what you want. Then Caroline's is great if you want to see like a headliner, like, Dave Attell is doing a full hour at Caroline's or whoever it is.
Right.
So there's a lot of options. I think we have 11 clubs if you count them all.
A lot of options.
They're not all great.
I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned Seinfeld. Now, the Seinfeld endorsement, like such an exciting thing happened to you last summer.
Yeah.
On the New York Mets broadcast, he's sitting in with the announcers. They ask him, who's a great up-and-coming comedian. He says Mark Normand. Mark, how do you feel about, your chances on the upcoming season of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee?
Oy, boy, that would be that would be the world to me. I mean, I've seen every episode of that show 28 times. I love that show. I love that he did that. I love that he's still worried about being relevant. I love that he loves other comics. And I just like listening to comics talk. To me, remember when you were a kid, I love Super Friends, because it would be like, whoa, Superman and Batman are hanging out with Green Lantern. I love that the superheroes would come together, and that's how I feel about Comedians in Cars. It was like, oh my God, Brian Regan and Seinfeld are talking, or Seinfeld talking to Norm. Oh my God, these two are interacting. Amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And so I would kill to be on that show. I've already rehearsed it 8,000 times in the shower, like pretending. I'm sitting in the tub pretending we're in a car together, and I've done all the banter and the dialogue, and I already know what I'm going to bring up. And I just think about what car he would pick and all that shit. And it would mean the world to me. I don't even want to think about it. I get too geeky and jizzy. I got to change my pants here.
I have to say your chances are good. I mean, he knows who you are. He talked about you. You're texting him. You open for him. I think you got this.
Oh, I appreciate it, Fatty. You're very nice, but who knows? He tends to have a bigger guy on. You know, it's still like a bigger, even like a Neil Brennan is above me level wise. So, and Mulaney and guys like that. Even the newer guys are still way above me. So. Maybe I could get in with some friendship factor because we text, and I've worked with him. I don't know if these other guys have opened for him, but that would help me, I think. But I don't know.
Right.
I don't think I have any juice. You know, like he's not. If he puts me on, it's not like people are going to be excited.
Yeah, but I don't think he's relying on his guests to up his numbers. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah. But you get Chappelle, and people are like, "Oh shit, this is gonna be a hot season." But then you announce me, and they're going to be like, who?
Yeah, that's all right. You're episode 6. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, just put me in the nice gooey middle there.
Now, was that the equivalent to today's, Johnny Carson giving the okay sign for a comedian?
No, because it's more for me, I think. Because, hey, look, he gave the biggest comic on the planet, or one of them, gave me an endorsement and publicly, and I shared it all over the planet. Everybody retweeted it. My friends saw it. Everybody went nuts. It was amazing. My parents actually gave a fuck about it, but it didn't help me at all. Like, I still can't get a Netflix special. I still can't get on HBO this or that. So you want to be like, hey, you suit-wearing, cum-guzzling Nazis, what more do you need?
Right.
Is this not enough? Look, I mean, the crowd is giggling. I got this guy shouting me out. What am I missing here? Like, I got zingers for days. I don't know, but now I'm getting bitter and cunty. But it's not the Carson, because Carson would change your career. He gave you the thumbs up or whatever, and that was it. It was over. You got a sitcom.
Does that even exist today with all the media out there?
Yeah, I think the closest you get to that is Rogan. Doing Rogan and then doing well on Rogan. You can't just do it. You got to actually kind of get some jokes in and make him laugh and be interesting and captivating enough for people to listen for 2.5 hours. Because after I did Rogan, I sold at every show since then.
Right. So that's where I discovered you, right? So I heard your first.
There you go.
I heard your first interview on Rogan, and I thought to myself, I liked his energy. I liked what he was saying. It didn't make me go check out your comedy, but then he tweeted the Good Morning Cleveland.
Yes.
And it's like, that's where I fell down the Mark Norman rabbit hole and haven't come up since. So.
Oh, wow. All right. See, every little thing helps. Like, you're talking about a guy who's done 8 Conans, 3 Tonight shows, a Colbert, a Corden. Nobody gave a fuck. Rogan tweets out a morning show appearance that I did at 8 a.m. hungover in Cleveland.
Right.
And that's what makes you. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you can't predict anything in this biz. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no blueprint. It's just be funny as many times as you can, and hopefully somebody sees it. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I want to show your comedy to people, that's what I send them. I send them that clip. And, some people think it's the funniest thing ever, and I get so angry when people don't think that's funny, because that's my sense of humor, like, exactly. And it just...
all right. Thanks. Yeah, I feel the same way about Norm Macdonald. I know a lot of people are like, I don't get it. Is he high? Is he what's the deal? I'm like, you're dumb. Shut up.
It's crazy. It took me a while. Now you and I are very close to the same age. Now, speaking of Norm Macdonald, when he was doing Weekend Update in the mid '90s, like, I didn't get it. I wasn't smart enough to just understand his humor and what he was doing. Now, granted, when some other later people did it, then I was like, oh my God, I miss Norm Macdonald. But at the
Right.
time, it didn't click. And I'm so angry that like teenage me didn't get Norm Macdonald.
Well, teenage is tough, and you got it eventually. But I mean, just even on paper, his delivery is amazing. But even on paper, this joke has to get you. Let me try to pull this one off. I'm going to butcher it because I'm not him. But he goes something something something. Women are bad drivers, and then it gets like a ooh, and he goes, I'll have you know, a woman wrote that joke.
Right,
and it gets
right.
like a, okay. And then he goes, I'm just kidding. We don't let women write on the show. I mean, come on. That's like a joke on top of a joke on top of a joke. And then he wins in the end. And at the end, you hate him, but you gotta love him. I mean, it's funny on so many levels. He's a guru, whatever that means.
I'll probably butcher this one, but I remember watching it at the time, where one of the jokes was, you know, a cougar attacked a husband and wife in, you know, Springfield, Illinois, and nobody knows why the attack happened, but hey, because maybe their pet was a cougar, and for some reason that joke got me.
That's great.
So let's talk
hilarious.
Let's talk about Tuesdays with Stories, because it's crazy the way I'm consuming that now, because I'm listening to your new episodes where it's like coronavirus and you guys are understandably solemn, but then I'm like back a year and a half ago where things are popping, and so the range of emotion is crazy right now. But has it changed the way you live your day-to-day life? Like, do you make decisions, you know, based on the podcast, on the way you interact with people?
I don't change things really, but, you know, when a bad thing happens, you still get that glimmer of hope of like, well, I can still talk about this. You know, like my scooter got towed, and I was like, fuck, I got to go to the DMV. I got to fill this out. I got to get this shit done. I got to go to the impound. And I was miserable, but the whole time I'm like, this is all gold. I got yelled at by the fat black lady. The construction worker Italian guy is yelling at me. Like, it's all gold for the pod, and I can spin it and use it, and I get 10 minutes or 20 minutes out of that. So everything helps. Everything is what we call podder, and we can use it. So even when a bad thing happens, you shit yourself, and you go, oh, this sucks, but this will be a good 20 minutes right here.
Right. And it's just,
sorry, you go.
Well, I was saying the chemistry that you have with Joe List is just so good, because you're going back and forth. You're very much on the same wavelength, like the puns you do, the random tangents that you go on. It's so entertaining. I even like, and this isn't a good way to sell it, but I like when you're just talking about day-to-day mundane stuff, like going into the bagel shop, running into an unpleasant clerk, or like when Joe List is talking about going down the airplane aisle and he sees somebody in the seat and he's excited because he's about to win an argument. Those little things are great.
Yeah. That's my favorite stuff too. I like, the stories are great, and you gotta kind of have stories sometimes because it's hard to fill an hour just comedically riffing. So the stories help, but I like the day-to-day stuff too. And I love when we just go off on the smallest minute thing. Like, he said he used ivory soap, and I was like, what about zest? He's like, I don't care for zest. And I'm like, well, you gotta love Dove. And he's like, Dove stuff. And I love that stuff when we just go back and forth about the dumbest little minutia of life, which I guess is a ripoff of Seinfeld ultimately. But we put enough slurs in there to make it our own.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's like, and it's crazy because now I'm listening to it backwards, right? So you get to like when the Seinfeld endorsement happens, you get to like when the Shane Gillis stuff happens. It's just like these pockets of time that you guys talk through, and you're like, oh, I remember when that happened. You're talking about like the government shutdown and how that affected travel. It's just it's a fascinating podcast, so people have to listen to it.
Thanks. And to tie it up with the joke telling thing is, a lot of people, they get beat up in a bar fight or something, and they go, hey, well, now I got a new 20 minutes on stage. But I don't really do that stuff on stage because I do jokes. So I get to do it on the pod now. So I get to still use it. Like a lot of most comics, I think something horrible happens to them or something good happens to them, and they get material out of it. I get podcast material, not stage material. So I can still use it, which is kind of nice.
Right. Well, there's so much elements to your comedy, right? You got the stand-up, you got the podcast, and you got your Twitter, and you say all the time, like some of the stuff on Twitter wouldn't work on stage, but it's just the way you put your thoughts out there.
Yeah, I got to do it. I love Twitter, and I get a lot of heat or hate on Twitter, but I got to do it. I got to get it out, and I've gotten a lot of bits out of it from just putting it out there. So
It seems like you and Joe get along so well, but is there ever like any off camera, have you ever argued about, the direction of the podcast or got into it off camera?
we've gotten into it for sure, but never really about the pod. It's never like, dude, why'd you say that or anything like that. But one time, just randomly, I was telling a story and I did did a bit of his. Like I was like, this thing happened to me. It was crazy. And when the mic shut off, he was like, dude, I got a bit about that exact thing. And you did every tag basically. And I didn't even know the bit. I just happened to just say what it's a bit about. I can't remember what it was about, but it was something that happened to me that I started talking about. And he actually has a written chunk about that. And he's like, you covered everything in your rant. That's all of my jokes. So we had to cut that out. And that annoyed him, but we get into about other stuff, but never really about the pod. The pod is it's work, like if there's a problem with it, we'll sit down and discuss it and try to fix it. But we won't really be like, there's not a lot of emotion going on with the pod. It's straight up work. We just want to be as funny as possible, get as many jokes as possible, and just not be dull.
Right. Well, people should definitely listen to, obviously the free stuff, but I do the Patreon as well. So, you get a lot of
thanks.
bonus material. It's funny because the way that you speak when you're with Joe is different than the way you speak when you're with your girlfriend, which is just interesting to see. It's just interesting to listen to, especially during this time when like you're just kind of sitting around waiting for this all to blow over.
Well, I like him better, and the sex is better. And, well, no, it's just me and him have been doing it 6 years, and it's like it's a language almost, and there's a rapport, and there's a rhythm. It's almost jazzy and jizzy, but we're both just like we know each other so well. I know where he's going to go. He knows where I'm going to go. We got our little dumb languages and the queefs and all the fun words. So when she does it, there's no way it's going to be anywhere near it, what we do.
Right. Well, like I said, it's the way I'm consuming it is crazy with all the, you've been doing it for so long. It's a never-ending binge, which is pretty cool. But
Thank you.
Mark, I'm going to wrap this up and let you go. But before we go, talk about your special May 12th.
Ooh, yeah, baby.
And then what is the vehicle that people can view the special on?
Well, you ready for this little nugget here? Sloppy jalopy. So film this special. Thank God I shot it, by the way. But film this special. Right after we shot it, my manager just quit. He's like, I want to be out of entertainment. So I lost my manager. Then my agent got pregnant. She just gave birth like 2 days ago. So she's out. She's on maternity leave or whatever. So I have no agent, no manager. We were going to like really package this thing and try to sell it and get it going. Then the pandemic hits. So now every company's out of money. Every network is too scared to pay for anything. So I'm screwed. And everybody who was interested has now pulled out and said, we can't really buy anything right now, or we're freaking out. We're laying everybody off, or furloughing, whatever that means.
Right.
So I'm just going to put it on YouTube because I've already promised it to people, I think. And people are clamoring, I hope. And so it's just going to be a Sam Morril type YouTube, May 12th. It's a hot one. It's full of jokes. It's dark. It's dirty. It's offensive. It's a probably like a 4 years worth of work put into this thing, and it's really comes together at the end. And I hope people like it.
Yeah, I've got high expectations. I got to tell you, I can't wait to
see it. Careful.
I know you don't want to hear that.
Go in neutral, but there's some jokes are better than others, but it's a lot of bangers on there.
Well, I hope it's huge for you. I hope it spreads the words. I hope it gets millions of views, and you can count on at least 17 from me, probably.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's called Out to Lunch, and I'm gonna try to get like a donate button cooking or something, just because I spent a pretty penny putting it together. So trying to make that back and break even at least. HBO pays $350,000.
Wow.
For a special. This is going on YouTube for the people.
Well, look, you put it in the work now. It's going to pay off, right? I mean, these are things outside that you can't control, but it'll all come back and it'll all work out. I promise. You know,
I
like
appreciate it.
2 years from now, I probably couldn't get this interview. So I appreciate you doing this for sure.
No, I'm lonely. You're a cute guy, and this was nice. Thanks for having me, Patty.
All right. So Mark Norm on Twitter, Mark Normand on Instagram, marknormandcomedy.com. The special's out May 12th on YouTube. Tuesdays with Stories is the podcast. Mark, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir, and good questions, and thanks for listening. Praise Allah.